gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's May the 21st, 2024. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined once again this morning by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, and Matt Shodell's gatekeeper, Stephen Wagner, as we discuss the news of the day. And Stephen, I said, we got to get you on today's show because yesterday it didn't go very well. You know, Matt was, as usual, out of control self. The transfer portal once again came up. I very admittedly did not do a great job of expressing myself, and we got pounded in the YouTube comments. So I figure we got to shake it up and get Stephen back on the show today. So here you are. But first, let me just clean up something just because I saw the reaction that it got. Like, I am a proponent of the transfer portal, have been from day one. You guys know that. Matt hates the transfer portal unless somebody's a free agent, okay? And we've been hearing us go back and forth on the transfer portal for 2 years. Well, I admittedly was rattled by what I saw during the NFL draft this year. And the fact that our prize catches in the transfer portal were just drawing a yawn from the National Football League. And it very honestly made me rethink how I look at the transfer portal. And so I was talking about that a little bit on yesterday's show, and it didn't come across very clearly. And I apologize for that, everybody. I try to be a little bit better than that. So let me just clarify. I love the transfer portal, but I have come a little bit closer. I mean, not too close, because I'll never get too close to Matt Shodell, but I've come a little bit more in his direction in that I do think that they need to be a little bit more judicious in who they take from the portal. And my feeling is a good barometer is this: is that guy good enough to be drafted by the National Football League? And, you know, people say, oh my God, Ken Dorsey wasn't drafted in the 7th round. We've had all these great players who have played for the Hurricanes through the years who didn't get drafted. And that's absolutely true. They also played on some better football teams. They had a lot of players that did get drafted. And there's a difference between those two. And this program is just not there yet. So I do think that Miami is moving closer to this, because I think this year's transfer portal, even though it's 15 guys, I mean, you could see the potential of who they did land. And I think a lot of them will get drafted by the NFL, and we will revisit this conversation next April. But I do think that, is a guy good enough to get drafted? Because if he's good enough to get drafted, he's probably good enough to be a starter on the football team. And to me, that's a great barometer. And that's what I was trying to say last night. Did not do it well. Got absolutely, destroyed. CaneFin30 says, thank God for Matt Shodell. Otherwise, Gary would be alone in the YouTube universe with his crazy Tuesday night callers. All right, first of all, like, the crazy Tuesday night callers, we haven't had that show in many, many months. They were very good callers. I thought they represented the fan base very, very well. And I am right now going to defend our crazy Tuesday night callers because you're talking about the CaneSport live show that has been a mainstay for many years. And yeah, we have some regulars on there, but I always felt like, that show, they did a fantastic job. And, but Mad Rapper says I made no sense at all. I mean, I got pounded. I mean, Mike said that we were in the twilight zone. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And I admit I was not at my best yesterday. I'm trying to make a comeback today. I brought Stephen on the show to enhance the morning here and get us going in the right direction. But I did just want to clarify that, because I do agree that I fumbled a little bit yesterday in just how I was expressing that, because we were kind of all over the place. So I did want to clarify that here first thing this morning. But we are here to talk about the news of today. And man, I don't really know where to start. I mean, we got a couple really good things to talk about. We're going to talk about I'm going to give Matt a compliment here. It's not the easiest thing to do, but I am going to compliment him because he came up with a really good idea, and I thought he did a good job developing it in talking about what's going to be a surprise area on Miami's offense this year that nobody is going to think about because we didn't see very much of it last year. But that's just a tease because I don't want to make Steven sit there for 20 minutes, wondering when am I going to get to talk. So I'm going to go to Steven first. And we're going to talk a little bit about the On 300 rankings for the class of 26, which were updated yesterday. We've got a story on the website talking about where Miami 2026 recruiting targets sit in the latest On 300 rankings. Steven, I'm going to talk a little bit about these guys. The one thing that jumped out to me is Miami is fishing in deep seas. Okay, they are looking to land some whales, some white sharks. They are looking to really kick some butt, and national guys are taking notice. I've been seeing commentary that if Miami wins this year, watch out, okay? Because people are seeing how Miami's in the mix for a lot of these kids. I mean, number 1, Jakeem Stewart. Number 3, Emmanuel, Ihenako. I hope I pronounced that right. Number 8, Zion Lee. Number 11, Faitham Brandon. Number 12, Kendra Harrison. Number 14, Diabell. Number 17, Derek Cooper. Number 20, Jordan Carter. Okay, that's 8 of the top 20 right now, or maybe 9 of the top 20 that Miami's very much in the mix in. Stephen will elaborate a little bit in a moment, but after going through the On 300 rankings and putting this story together, your general thoughts on how Miami is getting a clear early jump here on 2026 recruiting, while they obviously focus on 2025, where they're doing pretty well as well.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of that comes back to the job that Miami has done in the 2025 class, honestly, because the head start that they've gotten out to in 25 allows them to comfortably get a good jump on 2026. They already have 7 commits in the 25 class. They've got 2 in the 26 class. And so, with the 25 class, you're maybe not as worried or quite as laser focused on 25 as you had to be, because you were forced to be a year ago, whenever at this time, I think they maybe only had 2 or 3 commits, and they were, quite frankly, pretty behind, and they had to play catch up. Now Miami's able to get a little bit more out in front, especially for guys in that 26 class. Like I just said, they've already got 2 commits in the top 300 in the 26 class. Now, those are their only 2 commits, but still, that is a good start to get out to, and it looks like they're laying a little bit of a foundation. But you look at the progress that they've made with some of these guys in the 26th class. I mean, Miami was able to get Jakeem Stewart on campus pretty early this cycle. I mean, they got him to campus in March. He was down in Miami for a couple of days, brought his family out. Obviously, a guy who Miami is really, really interested in. Then a lot of these guys, a ton of these guys, they've gone ahead and offered while they were out on the recruiting trail this past spring, going to different schools and whatnot. But overall, Miami has given itself a pretty good amount of breathing room for the 26 class. I don't think that there's necessarily a rush. I don't feel any sense of panic. I don't feel a lot of anxiety. Instead, what I feel is Miami's put themselves in good positions for quite a few of these really, really top tier elite guys. I mean, guys like I just said, like Jakeem Stewart, the number 1 overall recruit, Diabell, the number 14 overall recruit, and the number 2 quarterback in this prospect. You've even got guys like Aiden Harris, who may not, who Miami might not directly be right at the top of their radar, but they've done enough that they know that they want to get back down to campus at some point. And I mean, that really just, you see it up and down the entire list. Miami is fishing in really, really deep waters, like you said. And I do think that the 26 class is going to be a very, very good class for Miami because of the foundation that they've already laid and the start that they've been able to get out to.
Yeah, and you mentioned like number one, Jakeem Stewart. He's a defensive tackle. Everybody wants him. LSU, Ohio State, Oregon have the early sort of eyeballs on him, but he is working to return to Miami this summer, and that's a really, really, really big deal. And I'm not going to go talk about every kid because you guys can go on the website, look at the story, see the summaries that Steven's put together on each kid and where they stand with Miami. But Steven, one thing that jumped out at me a little bit, we've talked so much at CaneSport about Diabell, just because he's a local kid. He's probably the most talented high school quarterback to come out of South Florida in at least 20 years. That's a pretty bold statement, but could be accurate. I think back to Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah.
That was, about in that time frame.
That was about 15 years ago.
Yeah. So 20 might be a little ambitious in what you're saying here, but, you might want to go edit that. I don't know if 20 is a good number, but the point I'm making is that we've covered him a lot, and we have assumed that Miami is going to be right in there. Almost would go and put a recruiting prediction machine pick in for Miami with Diabell, except for the fact that it does seem now like other schools like LSU, Penn State, Texas in particular, Ohio State have made some traction with him as he points to a decision later this summer. And maybe it's not quite the same certainty as we might have once wanted to believe that Miami would end up with Diabell. So I'm looking at the list and I'm saying, number 11, Faison Brandon, who's a quarterback that is rated by On3 higher than Diabell. And Miami offered him last week. Okay, so Stephen, the question for you is, I look at that Miami offered that kid last week. Don't worry, Matt, I'll get to you, but you get to talk plenty. That Miami's offer to him last week is a sign that they are realizing they need to expand their base of recruiting with quarterbacks.
A little bit. I'm not sure if I totally agree with that, because Miami going out and offering Faison Brandon, I think, was just kind of a no-brainer decision. You're going to offer the number one quarterback in a recruiting cycle, just because. If nothing else, you want to throw your hat into the mix. Who knows? Who knows what could end up happening. But right now, with a guy like Brandon, and this is what really is like, it just speaks volumes to where we are in recruiting. What this day and age of recruiting is like. Is this kid is a sophomore in high school, and Miami might be offering him too late. They might be coming into his picture too late, because a lot of these 26 guys, they lock in their decisions, before the start of their senior year. They lock in their decisions before the start of the next calendar year. So a guy like Brandon, he's already said, there have been a lot of schools that have been recruiting him much, much more aggressively for a lot longer. And Miami suddenly just comes in. They're trying to throw their name into the mix. Wouldn't say that Miami's necessarily, thinking like, oh man, well, 1,000% just go ahead and get Brandon because they went ahead and offered him. But there are a lot of other guys that Miami is absolutely in the mix for. Noah Grubbs, top 200 prospect. There's been some buzz around Notre Dame, but Shannon Dawson has very, very strong ties to both him and his quarterback's coach. DJ Bordeaux, a guy out of Marietta, Georgia, not crazy far from Luke Nickel, actually played with Luke Nickel on his 7-on-7 team this year. Both of them were ranked in the top 300 in this latest go around, and Miami has shown very, very substantial interest in both of those guys. Another guy, Tate Reynolds, out of Arizona, I think he clocked in at 243. Shannon Dawson made a trip out to Arizona earlier this spring to go see Tate. Actually watched him play baseball, because right now he's actually committed to Arizona State for baseball, even though he continues to have football offers. Just pouring in. I mean, heck, who's not to say that he could even do both at a place like this or at a place like Miami? But then you also have other guys like Quinn Murphy. He's a 3-star quarterback out of Argyle, Texas. That's kind of up around near the Dallas area. Or so. That's another guy who Miami is absolutely in the mix for. So I think this kind of comes back to Miami saying, man, we really have to cast a wide net with these quarterbacks, because what if we don't get Diabell? What if we don't get the number one guy on our recruiting board? Although obviously, I mean, that's pretty standard for, pretty much every single recruiting class that there's ever been. You can't always bank on, hey, we're just going to get the number one guy on our board. We're going to get the number 2 quarterback in the country, a top 15 overall prospect, and we're not really going to have to worry about anything else. I mean, you have to cast these really wide nets. You have to give yourself second, third, fourth, and fifth options, because who knows what's going to happen? What if your top 3 quarterbacks all commit elsewhere, or your 5th quarterback tries to commit? You tell him, wait, hang on a second, I think my number 2 is going to commit. Then neither of those guys commit, and you say, well, crap, now we have to scratch 2 more guys off our board. I mean, you're kind of in a position where you have to cast a really, really wide net, and that's what Miami's doing with quarterbacks.
Matt Shodell, your disciples can't wait any longer. They are like 16 minutes and 9 seconds with no Matt Shodell. Is no way to start a morning. So we are going to move over to you now. Now, listen, 8 of the top 20 already in 2026, and these rankings will change, but this is like, this should like make you really excited. Like, this is what you want. This is the type of recruiting that that Mario Cristobal is known for, that you have been calling for him, quite frankly, to embrace, as opposed to going to the transfer portal. You want him loading up on these high school kids. He's got 8 of the top 20 on Miami's board right now. Your thoughts?
I mean, it's good to see him picking up where Manny Diaz left off. I mean, what do you want me to say? Of course it's great. I don't have to say the same thing. What I hate doing is saying the same stuff over and over on the show. Everyone knows everyone knows that I say.
Fine, let's talk about cheese curds again. People love cheese curds.
Everyone knows that I say and I believe that he's the best head coach recruiter in the country, and he's tireless in his work ethic and how he goes about it. And there's a reason why a lot of programs are very wary of a successful Miami in the win column with Mario as the head coach, because he can recruit when they're bad. He can get 5 stars when they're bad. Imagine what he's going to do when they're good, right? So none of this surprises me. With Mario Cristobal as the head coach, they should have a top 5 to 10 class every year. The issue with Mario is he has this perception of being a bad game day coach. The issue with Mario is NIL and the transfer portal work against him, the way he's been handling it so far. But when it comes to straight up recruiting, there is nobody better in the country than Mario Cristobal. And I don't have to go into the whole why NIL and transfer portal is bad for him specifically. I spoke about it yesterday. I spoke about it yesterday, so I'm not going to go into that. But this program is definitely on the rise. This program, as Mr. Doomsday over here, that's me, not you, Steven. I predicted last year they were going to win 10 games this year and be in the playoffs next year, in 2025 playoffs, and then after that competing for a national title. And maybe some fans actually think that's doomsday. Like, they should be in the playoffs this year and competing for a national title this year. Like, I don't personally see that. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm just going to tell it how I see it. And this is what I saw coming when Mario took the job. The only thing that slowed him down, and I think he's a year behind the curve, was these, I think he's taken 40 players in the transfer portal since he got here. 40 players. And that's half an 85-man roster. Not all of them were one and dones. Some of them are still here from last year. He took another, 14 this year? So, like, you clog up the roster, and if you're not getting all free agents in the portal, which he hasn't, I think we tabulated that he got, somewhere between 16 and 25% hits, which are starters that actually contributed significantly in his first 2 years. That's not good. This year, the way I see it, if you just take Savion Riley out of the equation, I think he has a 50% hit rate, which is a lot better than the 25% I tabulated for last year. So you already have the recruiting in place. We knew that would happen. So now that he's got some free agents in the portal and he's only wasting a half dozen spots in the portal, in my estimation, like there's really nothing that's just stopped this program from winning except for him being a bad game day coach. And I don't think he realizes he is. And I wish he would just let Shannon Dawson and Lance Guidry just do whatever the hell they want. Like, I think he puts his fingerprints on the offense more than the defense. But those two guys know what they're doing, man. Like Shannon Dawson, as bad as Tyler Van Dyke was, that team still averaged 31.5 points and was in the top, I think, 35 in scoring last year somehow, right? And Lance Guidry really has no major college background. But, you know, just knowing football as poorly as I do, you could watch him last year and see that what he's doing is innovative. You know, I remember when I think it was Buddy Ryan, right, with the Eagles, where just NFL offenses could not figure out what the hell he was doing. And he would drop guys. He would do a lot of blitzes. He would do something different all the time. He would tailor things for different teams. I mean, that's what Lance Guidry did. When Lance Guidry goes from his base 4-2-5 to a 3-3 front, you know, that tells you that, like, not only does he have that in his arsenal, but he's able to teach it to his players in a way that they could pick it up in 1 week and actually play and be somewhat effective doing that, even with guys missing that week. All those, you know, they were missing Akeem Messidor. They had to use, he even moved Harrison Hunt to end from tackle. Like, he will do things that most coordinators wouldn't even think to do because they're stuck in a box. He thinks outside the box, unlike Gary Ferman. And that's really what you want to see. So I just hope that Mario Cristobal, like, takes his hands and fingerprints off everything and does what he does best, which is overall manager of the program. You can shake your head all you want, Gary. It's the truth. You think he's a great game day coach? That's whatever, bro. All right.
Listen, I'm not arguing that
take his fingerprints off the damn offense. All right. Do what he does best, which is be the overseer, the money raiser, the final decision maker in terms of personnel and other things like that, and recruit his ass off, which is what he does amazingly well at. And this program will have nothing holding it back.
So the $8 million a year head coach is supposed to just stay out of the way on game day. He can come sit upstairs with us if he wants. I mean, I'd be happy to.
Why do you think how much you're paid makes you a great coach? Is that your definition of a great coach? Is how much you get paid?
No. And I'm not debating his worthiness as a head coach. He won a lot at Oregon. Okay. I don't know that you win 2 Pac-12 titles being a bad coach. Maybe. I mean, maybe
nobody said he's a bad coach. Listen, before you put words in my mouth, he's a great coach. What I'm saying is he recruits talent that's better than all these other teams. They should not lose to these other teams. But sometimes he costs himself games when his team's better. He beat Ohio State. He beat a better Ohio State team. There, of course, you're going to beat some teams that you're worse than too at times. But too often in his coaching history, the opposite has happened, where it's just these boneheaded plays that everyone already knows about. I'm not going to rehash them. The clock management time after time, the going for it on 4th and 2 instead of kicking a field goal sometimes, you know, and you lose by a point, right? Stuff that people don't even notice in the first half that he does. There are just so many times that you say, like, I don't understand. Like an offensive coordinator who knows what he's doing wouldn't do this. Is it Mario doing it? We don't know, you know, because Shannon Dawson takes the fall for everything. That's what he did last year. You know, he's the Michael Cohen flip-flopper, you know, like whatever goes wrong, it's Michael Cohen's fault, right? Shannon Dawson, you know, I should have taken a knee. You know, Shannon Dawson, by the way, never said that it wasn't Shannon Dawson's call. He never said, oh, that was Coach Cristobal, right? He just said, yeah, we shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have done that, or whatever. Like, that's what Shannon Dawson does. But there's no way you can convince me that somebody who's as experienced as Shannon Dawson is, and he is, wouldn't take a knee in that situation at the end of the game. Like, it's just little things like that which are cropping up where you think, would a coordinator really do that? And it just seems like something Mario's done throughout his career, that just like he loves to be aggressive. He loves to take chances. And like sometimes you can't do that when you're better than the other team. Just freaking win the game, man.
I think he made a mistake not explaining why he did what he did. I really do. I mean, clearly you would never be able to defend it. It cost them the game, no argument. But he clearly
I don't want to hammer on one instance. There's been multiple instances.
But he had a reason for doing it. That's going to define him for at least a decade. There's no doubt.
No, I mean, not if he wins a championship.
You have to win a championship, because I'm already reading in all the previews for 2024 where people are making jokes about it. You know, take a knee this time, Mario, and things like that. You know, people are still referring to it. You know, he's not going to live that down. But I think it was a mistake to not explain what he was thinking, whether it was getting Don Chaney 100 yards, whether it was shoving it up the nose of Brent Key, the coach at Georgia Tech, that he had a history with at Alabama. I don't know what it was. He's never discussed it. I'm certainly not going to ask the question. I don't think it's a great subject, but I wish that there had been an explanation. I think it would have helped him just, to show people that he's just not totally insane. He's not this head coach that can't manage game day. He had a reason for doing it, and he just screwed up, and he's going to make sure it doesn't happen again. That's the way I would have dealt with it, as opposed to going into damage management. But whatever, that's over with. Before I move on, I want you to know that we have noticed that you're wearing the Gator T-shirt again. By the way,
the camera's going to have to bother me about it. All right, it's not a gator; it's a crocodile.
We're getting closer and closer to August 31st. That is absolutely not acceptable on this show. You have to stop wearing that shirt. The other thing is
crocodiles, because that's what you have to chant. If you want to say "Go Crocodiles," that's the chant. It's not "Go Gators." All right, it's not a gator, bro.
Nobody knows that's a crocodile.
Lacoste.
Number one, and who says
you can really Google Lacoste?
It's a crocodile, really? All right. The other thing I noticed, and I have, quite frankly, over the last couple weeks, noticed a significant decline in the quantity and quality of your work here at CaneSport.com, and now I understand why. You're spending all day watching the Trump trial and Michael Cohen.
You
and
can't even watch the Trump trial.
That's why you're not getting any damn work done.
What channel do you think I'm watching the Trump trial on? It's not on TV. Well, I have to go in person. What are you even talking about? I agree about the quality declining, but that's just mental capacity problems in my old age. That's got nothing to do with the trial.
I confess I've been watching a little bit myself, and never in my life, yesterday, this guy, Robert Costello, who is an attorney, he's an attorney in New York, okay? And he gets called as a witness in Trump's defense, and he gets on the stand and makes this crazy scene in the courtroom. He's commenting, he's ridiculing the judge, commenting on things the judge is doing. The judge shut down the trial, sent the jury out, emptied the courtroom, okay, and kicked all the media and everybody out into the hallway, and dealt with Robert Costello directly and told him that this behavior is not acceptable. You need to stop. I mean, just total fitting development in the most ridiculous of trials that you'll ever see in your life. And I'm not taking a side. Okay, we don't do politics on this show, and I'm not getting into all that. But on face value, it is the most absurd trial I think I've seen in a long time. But that doesn't mean there's not some scintillating moments. And Robert Costello's testimony yesterday, and watching CNN cover it blow by blow, was just absolutely fascinating. But let me get back to Canes. Let me get back to the news of the day. Matt, I'm going to shift gears now over to our story on the potential biggest surprise area on Miami's offense that could be the difference in creating one of the nation's most explosive attacks. And drum roll, please. That is throwing the football to the running backs. Imagine that. Like, we didn't see very much of it last year, Matt. They were almost invisible in the passing game as the tight ends, quite frankly. And now we're being told that that's all changing this year. We're going to throw the ball to the backs this year. We're going to throw the ball to the tight ends. We're going to have this great explosive offense. But I thought that was a great identifier by you, because you went back and you looked at Shannon Dawson's tape from when he was at Houston. And when he was at Houston, he threw the ball to the running backs a lot, okay? And they were a big part of his offense. Now, maybe last year he didn't feel so great about throwing the ball to a Jay Allen and Mark Fletcher. Damian Martinez is a good pass catcher, okay? Christopher Johnson is dynamic out in open space, where you could throw him swing passes and let him do his thing. His speed is unbelievable. Okay. You got Chris Wheatley-Humphrey there, also available if Chris Johnson can't go. A lot of weapons, not to mention Elijah Lofton, the true freshman, that you could put at running back and create matchup nightmares with him. Shannon Dawson's got a lot of tools, Matt, and we're going to find out if he's every bit as good of the offensive coordinator as you're suggesting that he is, to the point where the head coach should just, take off his headset and go, sit up on the bench or in the sidelines with us and just leave him alone and let him do his thing. He's got some weapons this year, and I agree that throwing the ball to the running backs is going to be one of them.
Yeah, and that's why, I don't know. Look, I don't know if Mario's fingerprints were on the offense or not, but when you watch some of the Houston tape and look at how Shannon Dawson used his running backs his 2 years as coordinator at Houston, because let's face it, those were really his main 2 years in a decent offense. He was at Southern Miss, I think, as a coordinator prior to that, maybe for a couple of years, but in a primary running offense. So where they got most of the yards was running. So at Houston, where it was a balanced offense, but very similar to what he's trying to do at Miami, you see different types of running plays, and you see different ways in which he used the running backs that he didn't do at Miami. At Miami last year, I should try to figure this out, but I felt like all the time they were just running basically up the middle, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 2nd and 8, 2nd and 5. Like, I feel like 90% of the time or more, it was just like certainly between the tackles. Okay. And it's not like they didn't have some speed to the edges. They had guys who could run the ball to the edges if they had to. Maybe not Mark Fletcher as much as Henry Parrish, but A.J. Allen has some speed. They certainly had Christopher Johnson was available if they needed him. Regardless of that, okay, so if you look at our story this morning, I put up just 2 clips of the way that Shannon Dawson, just 2 random plays, honestly, at receiver from when he was at Houston and how he used the backs. And one of them is just, a traditional screen pass that turned into a double-digit yard gain with the blockers in front. And then the second one was essentially a similar play to the other side. But on that particular play, the running back's going out for the screen, right? And the quarterback looks his way. The linebacker bites up. Dawson has taken all the receivers on fly routes to the other side of the field to draw off the safeties and the cornerbacks on that side. Once the linebacker pops up, the running back takes off downfield and is wide open for a 40-something yard touchdown. And that's something that we saw a little bit of with Rhett Lashley as well, that sort of play. But we never saw it last year for some reason, even though it's in Shannon Dawson's playbook, obviously, and it's been successful, obviously, because Shannon Dawson threw to his running backs, completed to his running backs, 60 passes his final year at Houston. You can say, oh, well, that's because they had a great receiving running back. Well, their top running back had 22 of those 60 catches. He wasn't only throwing to one guy at running back. All 3 main guys that they lined up at running back were in the offense making catches. It wasn't that was a big part of the offense, and it disappeared under Mario Cristobal with Shannon Dawson at Miami. I don't know why. It was gone. You can say, oh, Tyler Van Dyke wouldn't do it. I don't know why Tyler Van Dyke wouldn't do it. I mean, it's the easiest pass in the world. And those guys can catch. Mark Fletcher can catch. Henry Parrish is a receiving back. Christopher Johnson is a receiving back, even if he was a true freshman. A.J. Allen certainly can catch the ball. We've seen it. And the year before, you can say, oh, well, maybe it was just that 1 year, right? Shannon Dawson just decided to do it for that 1 year. No, the year before at Houston, the running backs had 46 catches. And keep this in mind, the 60 and 46 at Houston, Miami's running backs last year had 28 combined catches. 28. That's it for barely any yards. All right, so we had 60 the year before at Houston and 46 the year before that, led by 21 catches by a different back, right? It was the 22 2 years ago at Houston was Stacey Snead, and the year before that it was Alton McCaskill was the main running back there, and he had 21 catches out of the 46. So again, he's throwing to all the running backs out of the backfield 3 years ago and 2 years ago at Houston, and then last year at Miami it disappears. So I don't understand. I have no answer for that except for the fact that Mario Cristobal's fingerprints are on the game plan every week, and I know they are because I know for a fact that he meets with Shannon Dawson to come up with a specific game plan for each game. Like, that's what they do. It's not just Mario. All head coaches do that. A head coach isn't just like, okay, you go off into your room, you go in your basement, and I'll see you on game day, and hopefully it works out. They work hand in hand. And when you see a coordinator who consistently, for multiple years, has done something really successfully, and then it disappears at the new school, that's not usually because of the coordinator. That's usually the head coach's fingerprints on it. And that's why I said earlier, I want Mario to take his fingerprints off. Because the more I watch the Houston film, just to do this one story, the more impressed I am with how Shannon Dawson ran things at Houston. I guess, I know I looked at it before he came to Miami, but I guess I just assumed it would look like that. I forgot about it and it didn't look anything like it. It didn't. And people again might say, "Oh, it's Tyler Van Dyke sucked. Tyler Van Dyke sucked," right? But it was a different offense. Like it just looked different. It wasn't spreading the field. Like Gary and Steven, do you guys remember them using vertical and horizontal? Because at Houston, that's what they did, man. They stretched it horizontal. They stretched it vertical constantly. They were constantly moving guys around, misdirection. At Miami, it just seems so much more simplistic what they did last year. Like, am I crazy?
I other than you quoting those numbers and the results, I would say I was disappointed in the offense last year. I didn't.
It seemed simplistic, right? It didn't look simplistic at Houston. That's what I'm trying to say. When I watched that film, it didn't seem simplistic. So, it just seems like at Miami, they're just like, we're better than you. We're going to pound it down your throats, and we're not going to do any weird stuff. Like, that's what it felt like mentally watching that team last year. Like, they were just going to pound you up the middle and then throw some, like, safe passes, and then every once in a while take a deep shot to keep you honest. That's all that offense felt like.
In fairness, he is developing an offensive line that's going to be built, hopefully, to win championships. And you have to put them in those situations to do it. And so, I think that was some of it. But, I mean, to me, it was inexcusable to not use the tight ends all year and very minimal use of the running backs in the passing game. And I like these two clips you picked because the first one's just a simple dump pass. And I could see that play being run for Christopher Johnson. I mean, he's got speed like the back at Houston that caught the ball, Tayshaun Henry. But, man, I'm watching this clip over and over again. I don't know if you noticed, Matt, Kansas had a defensive tackle that was running from behind. And this guy, like, this had to be a 4-4 running back.
Yeah.
And this defensive tackle.
He doesn't give up that kid. Yeah. He didn't get him, but yeah.
He didn't get him, but my God, he was relentless as hell. And he was keeping up with him. I mean, he's got to run 4 or 5, not, at least. I mean, I was pretty impressed with him. He jumped out to me on the tape of that play as much as anybody. But then the other one is a wheel route to the running back. And I look at that and I think Elijah Lofton. So, like, look, Shannon Dawson is going to have a lot of options available to him this year. Check out this story. Think you'll like it. I think Matt's onto something. I do think that there's a lot of reason for us to see the running backs used more in the offense this year. And I think you'll enjoy that story that's on the website today. Also today, we continue our 50-1 countdown, ranking the top 50 post-spring Miami Hurricanes. Today, we get to number 40, Matthew McCoy, an offensive lineman that's battling for a starting job. And we take a look at where he stands and what his goals should be for this year and so forth and so on. So make sure you check that out, along with our previous 10 guys that we've already profiled: Jordan Lyle, Christopher Johnson, Cole McConaughey, Saquon Patterson, Cam McCormick, Nycard, Justin Scott, Markel Bell, Jay Allen, and Riley Williams. So that feature continues. We also obviously have a lot of additional recruiting stories on the website today, as we always do. And we take a look at 4-star wide receiver Tyler Williams ahead of his official visit. Miami has let him know he's a priority. You can check that story out. Miami's also doing very well for 4-star inside offensive lineman Breck Koloje. We have an update on him, as well as an update on 4-star Miami legacy Johnny Jones, a big offensive lineman that the Hurricanes are in on. So make sure that you check out those recruiting stories, as well as Steven's great take on the top 2026 recruits that are in the mix for Miami. If you are on YouTube right now and you like this show, we want you to hit your subscribe and like buttons because it helps us with the algorithms at YouTube in growing our audience. If you are not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please come on over, join our community. We do not think you will be sorry. We got a great community of fans that are on the message boards all day long talking about all these great topics that are there for the taking when you're a fan of the Miami Hurricanes. And we do everything we can do every single day, morning till night, to enhance your fan experience. So please come on over and join CaneSport.com here in the very near future. In fact, right now, before we go, I'm going to throw this up on the screen. If you use the code CANES1 when you sign up, we will give you your first 2 months for $1. Okay. $1 for 2 months. You can't beat that. Great chance to come check out the site. We hope you like what you see and you'll stay with us long term from there. But use the code CANES1 at CaneSport.com when you sign up. So that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. Thank you so much for starting out your day with us. For Matt Shodell and Stephen Wagner, I'm Gary Ferman, and we will see you next time, everybody.